This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non-toxic, medical-grade ingredients.
So, Brie, I remember this one time I was in a bike race around Tucson and I wasn't paying attention. We were riding down 4th Avenue and there's railroad tracks, like streetcar tracks. And my bike's tire went and wedged in to the railroad tracks and I totally fell down and just skinned my hands, everything.
Ugh.
I had nothing with me, nothing at all. And it's that times where you want a first aid product and you have nothing. And Active Skin Repair utilizes a molecule called hypochlorous acid. When applied to the skin, the molecule works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing. I've used it on my son's mosquito bites, and I wish I would have had it the time I totally scraped up my hands.
Oh, I hear you. Like whenever I go paddleboarding, kayaking, I'm always trying to find something that is like an all-in-one that I can take with me. And Active Skin Repair could be used like that. It can be used to treat cuts, scrapes, burns, sunburns, rashes, and other types of skin damage. It's also safe and non-toxic, which makes it suitable for all skin types, all parts of the body, like eczema and acne-prone skin, all of that.
With over 500,000 happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and ingredients so safe and clean they can be used from the youngest member of the family to the oldest, you now have one simple solution for all of your family's skin health needs. Visit www.activeskinrepair.com to learn more about Active Skin Repair and to get 20% off your order. Use code NOGUILT.
This whole my way or the highway does not equal respect, and that does not often help a child feel loved or supportive, especially if a child has any hint of mental health issues, can make it exasperated.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by my delightful co-host, Brie Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you?
We have a really, really good episode for you today. It is a personal episode of something that's happening in Brie's life and with her child that she has gotten express permission to share this information with you from her child. And there's a lot of hesitation too going into the story, right, Brie, and telling the story.
Oh, yeah. So so first of all, it blows my mind that people listen to the podcast. So there's that for starters, that I'm always trying to think about what is sharing a good amount of our parenting experiences and our lives and what is sometimes a bit too much. So if people have been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I'm divorced. I have 2 kids, they're teens, and that I do shared custody of my kids with my ex, and that he's different. He parents differently than I do. And that has been a struggle in my parenting life since we were married.
Yes. I mean, when we talk about parenting styles on the podcast, it is 2 very, very different parenting styles. Yours is more authoritative, which is the parenting style we teach in our balance program, where you do have expectations, but it's also very high in love and caring. And from what you've told me about his parenting style, his is authoritarian, where it's basically my way or the highway. What I say goes. It's high on rules and really low on compassion and that sort of love and support. Would you say that was right?
Oh, yeah. 100. And I think that my kids would say the same thing, which is what we're going to be sharing today. I'm all nervous. My palms are all sweaty.
I could tell when you're really nervous if your neck starts getting red.
It's not red yet.
It's not red yet.
I think I'm keeping it in I haven't turned into hypercolor speed yet, but I will. I'll turn into hypercolor eventually. But yeah, it's always hard for me because, we talked about this before. When I was I want to do this episode because I think it is really important for people to understand. I swear to God, I'm living through a research project of what happens when you have one type of parenting versus a different type of parenting. And at the same time, it's also I don't know. I don't know how to
It's
it's a
hard
fear
because
it's a
it's
fear of
very
being
personal.
yes, it's a fear of, like, what's the feedback going to be from people about this?
Oh, yeah, because
So,
people
yeah.
on the internet can be really harsh. They can go right into your parenting and be like, "How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you, like, don't go along with the child's father?" And that's, like, all very antiquated beliefs about, like, what's best for kids, and, like, also an antiquated belief about the father being the head of the household, which is just bullshit. Like, it is, like, we're in an age now where it is an equal partnership in the home, and I mean, there is a reason that you 2 are divorced because there was a lot of misalignments there in, like,
Yes.
in, like, logic and reasoning and, like, values. And we're gonna get into it, and you're gonna hear the whole story about a cautionary tale of 2 parenting styles. Let's get on with the show.
You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast.
Okay, Brie. So let's start from the beginning because when you were telling me earlier, you and your ex husband have always had these different parenting styles. Like, how did they show up when the kids were younger?
I think when the kids were younger, we both kind of had, like, a similar well, okay, well, let me back this up. It was always deferred to me for
Hmm.
parenting because I worked in the field of early childhood. It was always clear from the beginning that I was gonna be, like, the default parent, that it was gonna be mainly up to me, and that I brought him in as needed, and that, he was fun dad, like,
Oh,
playing and hanging out and all that stuff. We had expectations of how our kids would behave, like not screaming, yelling, throwing tantrums. I felt like that wouldn't happen because I would like, work on asking them about their feelings and expressing things. And he felt like that would happen because he would tell them, don't do it, you know? And
hmm.
that's probably when things started to get like a little bit harder. And
Do you feel like maybe he thought that like his method was working, but he didn't realize how much effort you were putting in behind the scenes
oh
about
yes.
feelings and
Yeah,
everything?
I totally do because again, like when shooting forward to when we got divorced, and when we got divorced, my kids were 9 and 11. Like my son had just turned, or maybe it was, yeah, I think it was like 9 and 11. He went full fledged into his more, do as I say kind of parenting realm. And it was that way with everything. It was do as I say to like to me. So it was hard and it was hard on the kids too because they would come back and my household was just completely different in the way that I ran it. So there would be
And
like
then
adjustment time.
yeah. Yeah, there'd be adjustment time. Like, so how did the kids initially react to that? Like, what did you see in terms of the adjustment time? What did they need coming back to your house?
They needed time to just kind of like be quiet and chill and not go do anything and just kind of rest and recoup is what I would
Mhm.
say. And when we got divorced, I knew it was going to be hard on the kids because it was a very quick thing and I we didn't fight in front of our kids ever. So I knew our kids would have a really hard time understanding why we were getting divorced, like why and we separated quickly, like within like a week. It was like separate homes. So they had therapy right off the bat. So they would also like I had them go into therapy just to have somebody to talk to that wasn't related to
Yeah.
either of us so that they could like talk about their feelings and everything.
And it's
But
also hard because I feel like knowing you at knowing and seeing you going through this, you couldn't actually address the issue with them because there was a lot of fear. Like when you divorce, you're not supposed to disparage dad in any sort of way or talk badly about anything that goes on in his home or
yeah,
like
yeah,
go
like you're
against
not
him
you're
again.
not supposed to ask like too many you're not supposed to make the kids feel like they're picking a side. You're
Mhm.
not supposed to make them feel like they're ever like even asking them like what did you do at dad's house this week can make them feel like they're spying. And
Yeah.
so, like, it's a very fine line to walk, and then you don't ever want to step into the area where you're saying something negative about the other parent, where you move into something called parent alienation, where you're like tainting the child's opinion of the other parent. But from early on, it was the kids would like call me crying from their dad's house about something that happened. Normally, it was just that they had gotten yelled at and that they had been, like, sent to their room or something, and so, like, calling me about them being yelled at and being upset, and so I would kinda, like, try to, like, help them, like, calm down and encourage them to talk to their dad, and then in therapy, it was, one of their goals was always to be able to talk to their dad because dad's he's louder, he's bigger,
Yeah.
he's got more of a do it my way or no way kinda attitude than mom did. So, it wasn't as easy to speak to him. So they had therapy goals all the time, and it was interesting because I had no part in what their therapy goals were. It was always whatever the therapist created from having spoken to them. And their goals had
Yeah.
always been to be able to talk to their dad. And then again, over time, like it turned into we're going to stop doing therapy on weeks that we're with dad, and we're going to only do therapy on weeks that they're with you, mom. And I'm like, well, why is that? Well,
And who
because
decided that?
the therapist,
Oh, okay.
and it happened with 3 different therapists.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a pattern.
Over the course of a few years of them being in therapy for various things, it would turn into like, we're gonna just continue it with you, mom. And I'm like, well, why? And they're like, because first of all, dad's very combative when he comes in. And second
Mm.
of all, the kids don't talk as much on the weeks that they're with dad versus the weeks that they're with you. We get a lot more out of a session. So it just doesn't make
Mhm.
sense to have them come in. So that is like the course of where things have been since they were like 9 and 11. Flash forward now, they're 17 and 15, almost 16.
And something big happened that you then had to address. And we're going to talk about that right after this.
Hey, all, it is Joanne.
And Brie here.
And we want to tell you about a podcast that you should check out. It's called Understood Explains. This season of the show is hosted by teacher and special education expert Juliana Urturbe, and it's all about how to navigate individual education plans, also known as IEPs.
And in this latest season of Understood Explains, it covers topics like how to tell if your child needs an IEP, and it busts common myths about special education. We actually just listened to the episode IEPs, Does My Child Need an IEP? And here is what we loved about it.
I loved that it was so digestible. Like, it was such a short episode, and all of the topics, which could be really confusing to parents, were easily explained.
And I loved how they gave great concrete examples because you know how much I love me a good example. They explained what kind of services and supports you could actually see on a child's IEP or individual education plan. And they explained those acronyms. That nothing drives me more crazy than when there's acronyms and I don't get it. I don't know what it stands for. They took the time to explain everything in so much detail and to cover concerns that a lot of families have about special ed services.
To listen to Understood Explains, search for Understood Explains in your podcast app. That's Understood Explains, or just click on the link in our show notes.
No one told us the truth about parenthood. Why? This is the podcast everyone needed before they had kids because now that those little ones are here, there is a lot to unpack. I'm Rachel Shepardota, and I am your host for the podcast No One Told Us, where we tell the truth about parenting and let you in on all the stuff you really should have known about before having kids. I am the founder of Hey Sleepy Baby, but this podcast is so much more than sleep. We'll be diving into all the topics that you really care about and need to know while you do your best job raising those adorable tiny humans. Our goal is to just make you feel less alone and less overwhelmed. There are so many things that no one tells us before becoming a parent, and I think that we should really pull back the curtain on becoming a first-time or second-time mom or dad to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll have a little education, a little fun, and a whole lot of heart that goes into each and every episode. So join me and our amazing guests each week to hear us talk about what no one told us.
So something big happened. Like, it was almost like everything was kind of boiling up to a big event based on, them trying to keep having these conversations with dad, not being able to have them. Fast forward to just a few months ago. And what happened?
Well, what happened was my daughter, so our youngest, who's 15, decided that she was ready to have a conversation with her dad about the fact that she felt, um, how do I put this? Like unsupported in his home. She felt
Mhm.
like they had expressed to her on a regular basis that they felt like she was not a good kid, that they constantly told her that she needed more God in her life, and that she's been called names. She's
Mhm.
been called curse words over there. Like, I'm not gonna
That's so
like,
sad.
yeah, like things that a kid should not be told. Like wearing a skirt. Oh, you look slutty today. Like it just things that
Stuff like
that
that.
a kid should not hear
Yeah.
from their parents under any circumstances. And so she had a friend who recently had a conversation with her dad because she was her other friend, who we both know, was
Mhm.
feeling very anxious and uncomfortable at her dad's house. So that friend had been in therapy for a while, and with the help of the therapist was like, I'm going to talk to my dad. I'm going to say like, hey, look, I think I need to be in an environment with my mom where I feel less anxious, less
Mhm.
stressed out, and then I want to work on my relationship with you.
Yeah.
Seeing that happen, and the fact that relationship, that dad was working on his relationship with her friend, made her have the courage, I think, that plus her therapist telling her like, "Hey, it's like she had to have her therapist, like she would tell her therapist what was happening at her dad's house, and the therapist would be like, "Yeah, that doesn't seem like what a typical parent-child relationship should be like. You really shouldn't be being told these things, and how does that make you
Yeah.
feel?" And so she was dealing with a lot of
Mhm.
anxiety, and she has a history of depression as well, and even some self-harming. So due to all of that, the therapist was like, I really think that you should talk to your dad and let him know that you're feeling very anxious at his home, and that you would like to have him put forth a little bit more effort to be not as harsh.
Yeah.
And if not, then you'd like to spend some more time at your mom's house where you do feel supported, you do feel less anxious, you do feel better about yourself. So,
And how did you feel going into this, like, knowing that this
oh,
conversation was gonna happen soon?
so anxious. Like on one
So
hand, incredibly proud of my daughter. She
yeah.
is 15, and that is a scary conversation for anyone to have.
Yes.
Especially like with your parent. You're having this conversation and you are looking at your parent and basically saying, "Do you love me enough to work on our relationship?" And
That's a
you don't,
huge thing for a kid to approach.
right? That's a big thing for me
Mhm.
to approach as an
Yeah.
adult. Like, you don't know what that answer is going to come back as. And she knew full well that there is a good chance that answer was going to come back as a no.
Mhm.
So I was nervous for her and really proud of her. And I was also nervous for myself because we have a very set life. Like, we've been divorced for a long time, week on, week off, half the time with their dad, half the time with me. And if this changed, then she's going to be here all the time, which changes a lot of things in the dynamic. And I also want her to feel loved by her dad. I want her to have a good relationship with her dad. And I was worried this was going to mess that all up. But
Mhm.
sometimes, like you've said before, things have to be scary and have to be messy to get to the better part. And I think
Yeah.
things got to the point where it wasn't a safe environment for her anymore.
Mhm.
She was really upset, really unhappy, constantly trying to like find reasons why she could come and stay here.
And
So
she knew she had to address the situation at that point.
she did.
Had to address it.
And I love how it came
So
about.
yeah. Yeah, so tell us that. How did it come about?
So I, and Christina are on a business
Yes.
trip in Nashville,
Oh. Mm.
and
Mhm.
we're at Mom 2.0, fun event, great event for mom entrepreneurs.
This is the
And
beginning of April.
yep,
Yeah.
and they have a kickoff party the first night. Like, there was a cover band playing Dolly Parton. Like, we were having and all of a sudden my
We were
phone
in
rings.
sparkles, we were
Ah!
in twins, and, like, it was great.
Yes, yes. And my phone rings and it's my daughter. And she's like, I'm in the bathroom of a restaurant. Dad took me out to dinner and I told him. And I'm like, told him what? She's like, I told him that I don't feel like safe and supported and that if he can't be nicer, that I want to come live with you. And he told me that I can't. That's not an option.
Oh
And
my
she's,
gosh. Well,
and
great. Good for her who just lay it out there like that. And also, like, you were like, what the hell right now? I miss it. What the hell?
why are we doing this right now? I am in Nashville. I can't be there to support you. I can't come pick you up if your dad says to come over to my house. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
And I also had like no signal. So like
Yeah.
she couldn't hear me and I could barely hear her. Yeah. It was not a great time. No.
No.
It made it hard. So the best advice I could give her was, listen, you're clearly upset about this conversation. Your dad, it might feel like sideblinded by this. So like, why don't you suggest you guys do a therapy session with your therapist? And your therapist will be there and she is a non-partial person. Like
Yeah.
she can help support and help articulate the things you've told her. And she can help facilitate that conversation in a less scary way.
Yeah, which is a great way. Like, I think that this whole story, Brie, is just such a good example about how to navigate this really tricky, like kind of middle part you're in, because you're trying to protect your daughter, you're trying to advocate for your daughter, but you also like don't want to get into it with your ex-husband, and you're being respectful to him as well. So you have such a hard job here where like you are in the middle of this. And I think like the way like you're handling it is quite incredible. So I don't think you give yourself enough credit for that.
Oh, thanks. It does
Oh,
suck. It sucks.
it does suck.
terribly.
It
Like,
sucks terribly.
because you feel like you don't have there's no right answer because we won't know the right answer until 10 years from now.
Yeah,
Like we
there's
really
no right
won't.
answer. So she called you from a bathroom in Nashville. You couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I'm like,
Obviously, it had to wait until you got back. So
Yep.
what happened when you got back?
so when I got back, they had their therapy session. And that was a doozy. That was a real doozy. So,
Let's talk about that therapy session right after this.
Lynn, this time of year, parenting can be such a flusterclux.
You've come to the right place. I'm Lynn Lyons, and I've been treating anxious families for over 30 years.
I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host Robin Hudson.
Join us for Flusterclux, a podcast for parents who worry.
Wait, that's everybody.
Yeah, these last few years have felt like one long anxiety attack for so many.
Why do you think parents are always surprised that a podcast about anxiety relates to them, even if no one in their house has an anxiety disorder?
Well, worry is human. Everyone does it, and anxiety shows up when we face uncertainty.
All the parenting tips you've taught me have been essential.
I love to break it down into skills we need to manage worry in our families.
We've covered so many topics: depression, burnout, meltdowns, perfectionism.
Don't forget scary mothers-in-law.
Right, but of course that's not my mother-in-law.
Because that's my mother.
And a listener.
As a psychotherapist, I like to teach parents and kids how to respond to everyday moments in healthy ways.
Managing anxiety really can be taught.
It really can, and I'll even tell you what to say.
We talk about serious stuff, but without being too serious.
Anxiety wants everything serious. Anxiety doesn't stand a chance when we're laughing, even about the tough stuff.
If you like this show, there's a decent chance you'll also enjoy the Shameless Mom Academy. Hi, I'm Sarah Dean, the founder and host of the Shameless Mom Academy. The Shameless Mom Academy is a podcast for moms that centers moms more than it centers your kids. I'm not going to teach you how to make baby food or how to make your 3-year-old or 13-year-old stop having tantrums. Instead, I'm going to bring you back to yourself. For the last 20 years, I've been helping moms through growth and transformation. Inside the Shameless Mom Academy, I help you identify who you are and who you are becoming. Look, motherhood is hard. It brought me to my knees many times and sometimes still does. Returning to who I am and who I am becoming allows me to decide how to show up in all those sticky motherhood moments, but also in all my other relationships and in all the ways I show up in my various communities. So come check out the Shameless Mom Academy wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm willing to bet you'll leave feeling a little inspired and maybe even completely fired up. And you'll probably laugh a few times because I promise we never take ourselves too seriously over here. With 700 episodes to choose from, you're likely going to find something that sparks and speaks to you inside the Shameless Mom Academy.
So the therapy session. you and not you, actually, it's just your daughter and your ex-husband sit down for the therapy session, which you
And her
told us
and her stepmom,
and her stepmom,
which is part of
and
the issue.
yes, and it was a doozy. So tell us about this one.
So she's like nauseous, sick to her stomach. She's like, Mom, I don't want to go. I know I said I wanted to go to therapy, but I don't think I want to go to therapy now. And I'm like, listen, this is my favorite thing. I'm like, it's just like throwing up. Nobody wants to do it, but once it's done, you'll feel better. Just go to your session. And if you ever feel like it's too much, you turn and you look straight at your therapist and you tell her, this is too much. I want us to stop. Or if you ever feel like you don't know what to say, you just turn and you look at your therapist. Like, you don't have to engage your dad or your stepmom in this situation if it's too much. So I drop her off because I don't go into these sessions because this is between them. And I do feel like my ex has some anger towards me, and I feel like that it can cloud things sometimes. So
and she's living with, and she's staying with you at this point. She came with you after Nashville, and she hasn't yet gone back to her dad's.
Yes, but that was because it was just my week. So that's how that worked out. It was just because it was my week. So so she goes into her therapy session and it goes terribly, awfully. So the therapist says, okay, stop. This is not good for anybody. I think that everybody needs a break from each other for a week. So I think that, you know, your daughter needs to spend another week with her mom and not have your visitation for this week. And my ex is like, fine. So then and then the therapist is like, and I'm going to schedule another session with just the two of you, just my ex and his girlfriend. So that way they could talk to the therapist without my daughter being there. And so that weekend comes and she's with me, and it was prom, and she happened to go to prom that weekend. And long story short, her dad got upset that she went to prom and felt like she made this whole thing up just so that she could go to prom. And we're like, wait a minute. She didn't even ask to come stay at my house.
Field.
Yeah, she didn't even ask to come stay at my house. That was something that was done by the therapist. And then she wrote an email to her therapist saying like, hey, I think that my dad's going to be really mad at the session with you on Monday because he was mad that I went to prom. And then her dad texts me a screenshot of like, what is this about? Of the email she wrote to her therapist. And I'm like, why are you reading her private emails to her therapist? And he's like, this is what parenting is called. And you need to monitor.
It's not. No.
And I'm like, I'm all for monitoring, but reading a private email to her therapist is like an invasion of privacy. I'm sorry. That is a bit much.
Especially when the conflict involves you, involves him.
Right?
The conflict involves him, and he is reading these private emails between your daughter and this person who is mediating the conflict between him and your daughter. It just doesn't, it reeks of ickiness.
And the whole time he's arguing that like, I parent her. You don't. She just wants to come live at your house because you just want to be her friend. You don't want to actually be her parent. And I'm like,
and I think that is such a common misconception about people who embrace this authoritarian style. They think it's like not parenting if you show your kids love and support and try to get their life going in a direction that the kid wants their life to go in. It just boggles my mind. But I think anyone listening right now who gets that kind of pushback from either an ex or from their current partner, just know it just doesn't make logical sense for your relationship with your children in the long term. And I think we see that actually coming out now.
Yeah. Yeah. So now at this point in time, as we're recording this has been over a month that this has been going on. Hasn't gone back to her dad's house. He has just this weekend. So 3.5 weeks or maybe 4 weeks at that point of him not.
So wait, let's back it up.
Yeah, you know where I'm going
with email.
Yeah.
No, yeah, because the email happened. And then what happened after he confronted you about this email he found?
Oh, well, then he had to go to his session. Him and his girlfriend had to go to the session with the therapist. And the therapist said that they were super pissed. They wouldn't listen to anything that the therapist had to say. And they kept saying that she just concocted this whole thing so she could go to prom. And the therapist is like, okay, again, I can guarantee you that's not it, because I was the one who said she needed to go to her mom's house, and we've been talking about this since December. So I don't think prom was a thought back in December. I really don't. Like, she's been seeing me since December, and this has been a conversation. So then it was decided that there would be a one-on-one session because Dad kept arguing, this isn't about me. This is about the fact that Mom's too easy. And plus, my daughter has an issue with her stepmom. It's not me at all. And it's like, oh, but it is though. See, because it's about how like stepmom might say some really mean things and you don't do anything about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what she's been asking for from you, is for you to support her and for you to show that you love her and to like say nice things and don't let people say mean things about her. And so they had a session, just my daughter and her dad again, like last week. And in the session, actually, I guess it was over a week ago. Anyways, really mad again, still saying that this was all being made up. Didn't see any reason to continue this, to continue having a conversation about it. And that absolutely positively refused for her to spend time at my house that was outside of my visitation.
That's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Unto which we had to point out that her doctor, her therapist, and I agreed with the two of their professional opinions that it was unsafe for her to return to her dad's house. That
Because of her history that you mentioned earlier.
And that she was super anxious and scared about what was going to happen if she went back there. Like what she would be faced with. Would she be punished? Would she be yelled at? Would she be called terrible names? Would she, get emotional abuse? Like what was going to happen? And since she's been at my house, her grades have gone up. She's been like working full time and doing well. Her anxiety, with the aside from what's going on with her dad, has gone down. So like it's a better environment. And so now, like I said, this whole process has been going on for 4 weeks. And 4 weeks outside of therapy, her dad has not spoken to her once.
It's sad.
Hasn't called her once to check in on her. Hasn't said anything to her. Hasn't texted her.
He's just so in the belief that he is right and she is wrong, and he is not considering her side of it.
Yeah. And I know from having been married to this person that they very much enjoy the whole silence treatment to people when they feel like they've been wronged. And I'm like,
sucks.
she is, and it comes back to the whole, like, you are an adult, she is 15. And I hate seeing it. Like, she puts up these walls, but she doesn't let people hug her. She, refuses to cry. Like, just, she tries to be so tough because she knows that emotions are a sign of weakness.
That's what she learned
in that
from.
household.
Yeah. In that
And
household.
it's so hard to see a 15-year-old try to hold that all together.
Yeah.
All the time. Aside from the fact that it's a 15-year-old that has anxiety and depression.
No,
So,
it sucks.
so now we're at this point where she has said that she has no desire to go back to her dad's. Like, she doesn't even know if she wants to work on it anymore, because every time she tries to work on it with him, she leaves crying and feeling worse about herself. And he has yet to say even that he's willing to work on it or that he thinks that she's worth working on it. So like, essentially, like, she told him, like, I want to work on a relationship, and he has done nothing to do that. Like when they left their last therapy session where it was said that she was going to come stay with me, I told him that I would do everything I could to support them seeing each other. And I was like, so that means like you guys text each other and set up dinner, set up going to the movies, set up going to get a coffee, whatever it is, like come up with stuff, and I will rearrange my schedule as best I possibly can to take her there every time you want to, every time you guys make this going. And it's coming up on the second week now, and has yet to text her to set up a time or anything. And she even like took off from work. Like she like took off Sundays so that they could hang out, and he hasn't done anything.
Oh, that sucks.
So I
That
feel,
sucks.
yeah, go ahead.
It just sucks all around.
It sucks all around. I mean, you've known her since she was 5.
Yeah.
And it sucks to see. Nobody should should have to be in a position where they have to ask their parent to protect them and love them
Mm-hmm.
and then have them not answer.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like many kids are in that position. And like you mentioned before that you feel like you're in a research experiment with like, here's what authoritative parenting looks like. Here's what
Yeah.
authoritarian parent looks like. And here's the results that happen once kids are old enough to have their own agency and decisions about things.
Yeah.
Because when she was younger, she really didn't have any control over the situation. And now that she is older, she definitely has more of a say, which I think is what we talk about a lot happening. Like we're playing the long game with our kids. And if we're not interested in them or respectful of them, they're going to push us away hardcore. They're not going to feel like they need to stay by us when they get older and they can make their own decisions and they can
Right.
go out on their own.
Right. These are the examples of I'm going to just move out the day I turn 18 and go do whatever I want to do. Like I know so much more about her life than her dad does because she lets me in and she tells me about it because she knows that I will listen. And it doesn't mean I agree with everything. And she knows it. She will tell you that we disagree on a lot of things. And I can disagree with her choices and what she does. And if it's something that's dangerous, then yeah, we don't do it. But if it's something that I'm like, well, this is going to end badly, but no one's going to be
Okay.
killed and nothing's going to be burnt down. So let's just see how this turns out. Like she knows that I'm there and I have her back and I will be there to support her no matter what. And that is what she has said that she needs. So like she has proven that my way or the highway just makes her try to be more deceptive and not say things. Makes it so that she doesn't want to spend time with them. Like right now, as we're recording this, and this is a month into this, and this is a month into the like heading it off. Like I said, this like we talked about from this episode, this has been going on for years. She says that she has no desire to go back at all. I'm hoping that changes. I'm hoping that her dad continues with therapy with her. He softens up a bit so that they can continue to do therapy. I hope that he reaches out. I hope that they continue to connect. And I hope that she doesn't lose her dad.
Yeah. So, like, Brie, what do you hope people take out of this story and out of this episode? Because first of all, I have to thank your daughter for allowing you to share this story with people because it is so helpful to hear what actually goes on in homes because it makes, first of all, people feel less alone. Because there's probably something in this story and situation that everyone could like find little pieces in. And also like it's so great to share your own story because people can learn from it and people can decide what their future actions are. So like what do you want people to walk away with from this?
I want people to realize that this form of parenting where like you're coming like you're meeting your child, you're listening to them, you're asking questions, you're showing them that you believe that they can make choices and that sometimes they're going to work out great, sometimes they're not, like whatever, just being supportive of them. This authoritative method of parenting is like much more helpful in the long run and that the kids do appreciate it. They really do. I have seen my daughter like grow and flourish so much under this. Like being able to be more independent and to ask for things. Like I can't even imagine being her age and having the kind of tough conversations she's having. But she's having them because she knows that I believe in her and that she can do it and that she's got a supportive parent there with her. And that this whole my way or the highway does not equal respect. And that does not often help a child feel loved or supportive, especially if a child has any hint of mental health issues, can make it exasperated so much worse than it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
She
So
knows
that's
that you have her back, so she's more willing to take risks because she has a safe spot to land. It's
Yeah.
what like they say all the time, and you see evidence of it here.
Yeah.
So We hope that this episode brought you a bit of clarity of any situations you may be going through. Maybe you know someone going through a situation like that, or maybe you see your kids struggling as well. So share this, please, with anyone that you think needs it and needs to hear this story. And until next time, remember, the best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you, and we'll talk with you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Well, hey there, busy mama. Are you looking for ways to make your life easier, your home less chaotic, and at the same time add more joy to your life? My name is Deanna Yates, and I'm the host of Wanna Be Clutter Free, a podcast all about letting go of the stuff we don't need in our lives so that we can focus on what truly matters. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to throw it all away or make you feel guilty about keeping something you love, no matter how many other people don't quite understand it. But I will give you practical and, more importantly, actionable advice so that you can make progress right away. And you won't just hear it from me. There are amazing guests too. It's like having your bestie in your pocket telling you it's okay to let go of the things that are not serving you and your family in a totally non-judgmental way. So join me over on the podcast where we can work on progress over perfection for those of us that want to be clutter-free.